Okay, if the audio doesn't work this time, I'm going to definitely just hold the mic in my hand because I checked. That worked. This was also supposed to work, so hopefully this works. I think I did sound like an old-timey radio announcer a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. But hey, hi, how's it going? John Tortorella's first week as head coach for the Vegas Golden Knights. How did it go? In my opinion, better than expected.
Well, I'm off to destroy Canada. They've had it too good for too long. Canada!
Was I expecting to win these first 3 games? A little bit, yeah. And I'm not going to go into details about, I don't know. We'll see where this video goes. The main thing that I noticed in the first game against Vegas and Vancouver was mostly the fact that Vegas needed to take care of business, and I didn't feel that they did it enough. Because it's the Vancouver Canucks of 2025-26. And I had said before the game, if they win 10-0, that tells me nothing about John Tortorella as head coach and this team in general, because one game, not good enough, and it's against the worst team in the league right now. And man, I wasn't thoroughly impressed. Vegas was able to get the job done, and they should have, is the thing, if they want to be a playoff team. And I'm going to go about the rest of the league a little bit at the end if you want to hear my thoughts on that. But Vegas against Vancouver, they took care of business as they should have. And Tortorella mostly, okay, clarifying things about Tortorella and Kelly McCrimmon. Kelly McCrimmon said that he thought Bruce Cassidy did not lose the room. I have zero idea what that means, why the firing took place when it did. And obviously, I get the idea of Olympic season. Everything's out of whack. Injuries up the wazoo. We lost Carlson early. We still don't have him back. And our center situation. And George McPhee, who's the president, head of hockey ops or whatever, that's technically over McCrimmon, that I'm sure has a ton of say in all the decisions that happen. Him, Foley, and McCrimmon, the three-headed giant. The NHL Wraparound podcast. Very random. They have less than 200 views on this specific interview. They have less than 1,000 subscribers, but it is Stanley Cup winning GM Neil Smith and ESPN NHL veteran Vic Morin. And they interview McPhee, and he gives his insight onto the whole situation. And I thought the interesting thing was that they wanted to keep Marner at center, which he, from the discourse that I've heard around the interwebs, Marner should be a right winger. Like, he's an elite right winger. That's why you're paying him $12 million a year, and that's why he got that big contract. And so getting any other center in there as opposed to making him a center would make more sense, which I agreed with. But the thing is Vegas doesn't, and their analytics is a lot smarter than I am. And that decision came from top down, right? And so I don't think that was Bruce Cassidy necessarily. But they basically pointed out how he's an elite defensive player, Marner is, and his ability to be able to do these things and still be able to produce is just phenomenal. And they want to keep him at center when our center depth is extremely low. So they swapped him and Eichel in their lines, which didn't make sense to me either, because Marner and Dorofeyev have been dynamite when they've been together. But putting Marner with Stone and Barbashev and having Eichel go down, I guess technically, to be with Dorofeyev and Howden, didn't make a ton of sense to me, but it worked. He kept with it. Torts did the same lines for the first bit of the game against Vancouver. And it was just whatever. Friggin' Evander Kane, of course he does, scores first and in his 1,000th game, because of course that happened to happen in Vegas. Literally having the worst time, me, watching this team. And Vegas comes back as they tend to do, because they tend to have to. And it's the blue liners first. Rasmus Anderson, Shea Theodore, and Vancouver scored in between there, but it's fun. And then the Smiths. Riley Smith gets Vegas the lead, and then Cole Smith with the empty netter at the end. Vegas holds on for a 4-2 win against Vancouver, which was important to be able to just get the ball rolling. And that's the theme of this week that I've seen for Vegas, is that under Torts, and the timing of the firing might have made sense from this sense, because you're facing Vancouver and Calgary, who are both teams that you should be beating, especially with this squad, with those squads where they're at, us having acquired Rasmus Anderson and seeing Zach Whitecloud wear 28, that was rough. That was hard. He had the A, which that was cool. I love seeing that. I love Zach Whitecloud. But Rasmus Anderson over this course has been our best defenseman. Good. Great. Speaking, I'm just going to do the jersey switch now. And Vegas gives up the first goal again, like they do, because they suck in the first and second period. So I'm like a game and a half through this section of Torts as head coach, and I'm still not impressed. Like, yeah, Marner looks to be clicking a little bit better and all that jazz, but it was the Vancouver Canucks. I'm not taking away anything from that game. And against the Flames, it's an emotional game against White Cloud. But second period starts, and Mitch Marner arrives. In that game, Mitch Marner has a hat trick. 5 points on the 6 goals that Vegas scored. Hat trick and the 2 assists. And it was coincidentally the same day that the Toronto Maple Leafs were eliminated from playoff contention. Coincidence?
I think not!
Blake Coleman did score twice for Calgary, which, whatever. But this was also Carter Hart getting back into the swing of things. Dorofeev, Howden, and Barbashev, the other 3 goal scorers. Mitch Marner closed off with a hat trick, and it wasn't on the empty net, although it was towards the end of the third period. It was just a really good game for Marner to blossom and to get good points. The Flames team is different from Vancouver because they are actually good. I know they traded off Anderson and Kadri, but at the same time, the way that the NHL is this year, you could really make an argument for any of these teams being able to do something in the playoffs, even the ones that aren't going to make it, or the fact that this is just an off year and they're going to be able to come back next year, like Washington or whatever. Really, there are only like a couple of teams that are pretty bad, although Vancouver swamped the Avs 8-6 or whatever the heck crazy score that was. But I don't know. Something starting to click in that second period. And at this point, I think what I was trying to talk about earlier is facing Vancouver and then Calgary as Torts' 2 first games for Vegas as their head coach, really to get the vibes to be different, because Mark Stone had talked about in his interview after the day after, with all the press conferences about the firing and the hiring of John Tortorella, who said basically that he wasn't going to try to change anything because Bruce Cassidy is one heck of a coach. He's like, yeah, no, that guy that just left, he's fantastic, one of the best coaches in the league. And so I'm not going to change anything. But that's Torts' MO a little bit. He's very, like, with the media, just very good. Especially when, like, he's brought into a situation he likes. Mark Stone had talked about it not necessarily being the heart or the emotion of the team was off. And that's what the problem was. So bringing Torts in at this time against 2 teams you should be beating, and to get the feels in the locker room up and vibing, and let's see where that takes us. And where it takes us, I mean, I know Edmonton was without Hyman and Draisaitl, and Hyman was their power play engine, I guess. Makes sense. Best player in the world on your team, and it's somebody else that drives the power play. But hey, cool, good for them. At least they know what their issue is. And assuming those guys are back for the playoffs, of course Edmonton's going to be a force to be reckoned with. But Vegas scored first in the first period. That felt good. Brett Howden, thank you. In the second period, Colton Sissons, and after him, Jeremy Lauzon with his first as a Big School Knight, his first in almost 2 years. I think it was a little over 2 years. And then, of course, Bouchard, to make it 3-1. But then in the third period, Oilers fans in the internet that I saw were saying that Vegas Golden refs after the third goal, which Lauzon, sure, whatever, saying that you were losing 3-0 because of the refs. Honestly, a bad take in my opinion. Maybe, just maybe, especially when your power play was anemic. Mark Stone scored early in the third, right after your power play got 0 shots on net. So I don't know. And yes, it was the ref's fault that they told specifically Ekholm that he could not go in front of Stone or try to battle him at all as Stone tried to get to the net for that tip-in goal to make it 4-1. They also told Nurse that he couldn't back check during the second goal, like at all. Like if he went over 10 miles per hour, 16-ish kilometers per hour, that they were going to call a penalty on him for charging. Sure, why not? And they also had said that what Brett Howden did Oh man, did you see Brett Howden commit a grievous crime? He stole the puck from Connor McDavid, and then, literally, right in front of the ref's eyes, 30 seconds later, he stole the puck from another Oiler. I mean, come on, it's grand larceny right in front of your eyes, ref, and you're not going to call it? Last time I checked, stealing was a crime. Yeah, no, just you didn't show up tonight. In fact, the only person delivering for you guys was a doctor that helped deliver a baby because a woman started going into labor during the game, which, hey, that's awesome. That's a really cool story, genuinely, like hockey first. That is such a cool story. I would love maybe to be that kid and be able to tell that story for the rest of my life, being born in a place where I love hockey. And hey, to like for if it's a girl, probably name her Elle, to celebrate taking an L last night. Or if it's a boy, Connor or something. I don't really know. There's McDavid, but there's also Ingram, and Bedard, I guess, but he's not on your team, so you don't really care about him. But Connor Brown, he played for you guys not that long ago, and he was great. Should have probably kept him instead of Frederick. But in all seriousness, like this is just friendly banter. The Edmonton Oilers, I'm still not convinced. Like, especially if they have Draisaitl and Hyman back, I still am not 100% confident that Vegas could challenge them in a potential matchup in either the first or second round. Because with that regulation win over the Oilers and the Ducks losing to the Flames, thank you Flames, Vegas, Edmonton, and Anaheim are all within 1 point of each other with 6 games left in the season. So that's so much fun, tight division battle race for we're at 87 and 86 points. Yeah, listen, the playoffs recently have been about a goalie being hot at the right time and a war of attrition about who can actually get to wherever. And so, do I believe the Vegas Golden Knights, with Torts and this new fire that they've seemed to have in the first week of his coaching of this squad, can go far in the playoffs? Yeah, they have the talent to. Every team technically has the talent to. Because hockey is a fantastic sport, and the game of hockey has never been as talented as it is today. And there are so many players that can just come out of nowhere and steal a series, a playoff, or a season. And I believe that that can happen with pretty much any team. Anaheim, Edmonton, or Vegas. And then you've got the craziness that's happening in the Central between Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota, and then Utah, I guess, in there. But that battle for the wild card and just playoff spots in general is really high right now. The LA Kings are trying to make it still. I know Nashville is somehow in this, which, hey, good for them. Let me pull up the standings just because the races between the East and the West are actually they're really tight races in both conferences. It's just one is 10 points higher than the other one. Sorry, not 6 games, 5 games left. That was the 77th game. And regulation wins is going to favor Edmonton. The other thing I was going to say is if Vegas or LA make it in, the fact that they have as many overtime losses as they do really is a wild card. Not in the position in the standings of a wild card making it into the playoffs, but we have no idea what to expect from either of these teams because we're not going to have the situations that gave them those points in the regular season in the playoffs, which is a good or bad. Vegas has clawed their way back into games, which would mean third period momentum carrying that into overtime would probably favor them, even though they tend to lose in overtime. 3-on-3 is just a completely different game. Now, the Kings having 19 regulation wins and 19 overtime losses, it was 76 games in, 19 of them 31. Honestly, I like San Jose. It's a fun group of kids. Not Michael Misa, freaking Macklin Celebrini. That kid is fantastic. And I know that Vegas, San Jose hate each other, kind of. Honestly, that blood feud has died down a ton on Vegas' side, at least, over the years. And Reeves plays for the Sharks now, and so it's just a completely weird situation where, like, I'm not rooting for anyone, especially against Vegas, but I'd kind of be happy to see them in the playoffs. And honestly, I think they could upset a bunch of different teams. And really, what I want for Vegas, because I think it'll be best for them to probably get second in the division so that they face whoever gets third in the division, whether it be Anaheim or Edmonton, because I think those are going to be the top three. It's not locked in for sure, but based on the point discrepancy between LA at 81 with 6 games left and then 86, so a difference of 5 points in 5-6 games, that's going to be really hard to overcome, especially with Vegas seemingly heating up. And Edmonton won 5 before their loss to Vegas. Had to bring that one back in, right? And who knows with Anaheim? But like honestly, if those stay the top three, I kind of want Vegas to be second because I think it'll be easier for them to have a Pacific Division opponent rather than facing Utah in the Central, or and then if they get the other wild card spot, then it would be Colorado, right?
Come on, come on, come on, come on! Yeah! Pick up the pace! Come on! Ah! No! Pull back! Pull back! Patient! Slow down just a little bit! But don't give up! Make it close! Second! Close second! Yeah! Yeah!
If they win the division, I'm not going to complain. It'll be the first time in franchise history they've won the division 2 years in a row. And, you know, it's just fun bragging rights. I'm not nervous. That's the thing. Like when they were losing to Vancouver and Calgary early in the first, in those 2 games that they ended up winning, I wasn't nervous, but mostly because, not because Vegas has like proven that they can overcome it, even though they have. It's just because it's what I expect of this team anymore. And like, I don't really expect them to go deep, but if they do, hey, that's fantastic. Yay, let's go for the Stanley Cup. Other notable points from around the league. The East is fun. Man, Matthew Schaefer, what a revelation that guy is. Islanders, copied Vegas' homework. Vegas, can I copy your homework? Sure, but change it a little bit so that the teacher doesn't see it. I bet. Not Bruce Cassidy, Pete Deboer. The Islanders hiring Pete Deboer. Cool. Yeah, no, that was the other like obvious other person that could have been hired instead of Tortorella for Vegas. No. What is Jay Woodcroft doing? Because that could have been really fun against the Oilers, eh? He's an assistant coach for the Anaheim Ducks. So I mean, like, probably not, but you know that would have been drama in the Pacific Division all on its own. I don't know what to expect from this team. I'm happy that we have this new surge and bump under Torts, which we should. You know, I didn't think it was gonna get worse, really, but the real problem is we're really not gonna know anything more about this team unless we get into the playoffs and show there. And that's how it's always been. That's how it was going to be going into the season until we flirted with missing the playoffs entirely. But there's still a chance that Vegas misses. I don't think it's likely. But this season is reminding me a lot of the NFL season. Any team really could win any week. There were surprise weeks every week, surprise games, surprise upsets into the playoffs even. And I feel the same with this season where anything can happen and I really wouldn't be surprised. I guess if the Devils somehow made it into the playoffs, I honestly would not be surprised. They're not technically eliminated. They are close to it, but Panthers missing the playoffs and the Pacific Division looking like trash, even though it has the best player in the world in it. And, you know, just whoever wins between Minnesota and Dallas, because that matchup has been locked in for like, what, a month now? Nothing would surprise me at this point. So, hey, that's fun though, right? Storylines every week. But hey, 2 videos in a week from me. That's crazy. Thank you for watching. Sorry that this was just babbling and rambling, but Vegas had a good week, and genuine question. If Torts were to win out, the Vegas wins out the rest of the games of the regular season, does Torts get Jack Adams consideration? Should he? Because, you know, he's the only coach that did not lose at all in the regular season, unless, you know, Pete Deboer also goes on a heater, which, you know, they... 4 games left. I do not understand. Patrick Waugh seemed to be doing fine. I don't get it. Anyway, like, yeah, they could have used an extra kick. I keep talking even after I try to stop it. Anyway, yeah, no, that was fun. It was a good week, and Carter Hart did really good against the Oilers, and so honestly, nothing surprised me. So I spent all this time just blabbering that I forgot about the one point that I actually wanted to make, which was in the game against the Oilers. The thing that surprised me the most was how much Vegas limited odd man rushes the other way. They had a few of their own, and Edmonton and Vegas in the game earlier in the season, which was decided by 1 goal in overtime, I think. Yeah, Bouchard in overtime won it, right? Even though you guys have won a lot of games in a row against us before this, what was it, like 9 of the last 10 or whatever. Those games tend to be close, like 1 goal games or overtime decided games. And then Vegas comes into your barn, wins 5-1. Rasmus Anderson, the goal that made it 5-1, stares down a fan, and the fan gives him the bird, which happened 3 years ago, in round 2 in 2023, when Vegas made it 5-1. This little girl gave them the bird. And yeah, there was that one fan that gave the bird to Evander Kane in game 1 of that same series, which Vegas won that game, by the way. The thing that my point was Vegas limited their odd man rushes, which is a problem they've had all season. They are really good at having goals against expected, like the goal share per 50, which is all theoretical. And so it doesn't technically matter, but the underlying metrics show that Vegas has actually played really well. They limit the opportunities that the other team seems to have. However, the problem has been every opportunity the opposing team seems to have has gone into the back of the net. Their save percentage is like second to last in the league, or goals saved above expected, second to last. It's just not good enough. And so it really depends on if one of their 3 goalies between Hill, Schmid, and Hart are able to get on a heater and take them to the promised land. And who knows? Torts has experience with Hart, and maybe this will light a competitive fire underneath the other two. We really just don't know, and so can't wait to find out with you guys while watching the future. But that's going to be it for today's nightly review. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched all the way to the end, I would really appreciate it if you hit subscribe. It really helps me out. It's free. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a good night.